Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber ask a question wanting to know how is it that Skullcrushers, also known as laying tricep extensions, are able to cause tendonitis and pain in your elbow and in your tendons around the elbow. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, do a little bit of crafting, and let's talk about that for a minute. Alright guys, a lot of times this is actually a big deal, because you see a lot of people out there who have pain in their elbows from pressing, tricep work, things like that. And the problem we run into is that one of the biggest myths that is out there is that locking out on presses is actually causing pain in people's elbows. And sometimes they get into wrapping their elbows up, putting elbow sleeves on, everything else to try to get heat in there to get rid of this pain. They start skipping lockouts on presses because they're convinced, because a lot of bodybuilders out there believe this, that locking out on presses causes elbow damage, right? That it damages the joint, when there's actually not truth. There's no truth to that, other than maybe for people who are double jointed, which is its own separate medical issue that has its own separate training needs. It doesn't apply to most people training. People who are double jointed, of course, have problems in their other joints. It's never just their elbows. So it's created a myth there that that's what's causing it. The truth is, the actual cause of elbow pain you're usually getting in your triceps. It's not from pressing, it's from doing excessive amounts of tricep isolation, and particularly doing it in the wrong way. So that's what's actually going on. So yeah, it is buildup of tendonitis in the tendons where the lateral and medial head of the tricep insert. All right, this is caused by exercises that put too much direct stress on those tendons because of the way the exercises are performed. Usually the exercises that cause this the most are the ones that put excessive focus on those two heads of the tricep while ignoring the others. Meaning, a lot of times you'll see guys who say things like, oh, keep your elbows tucked in tight, right? And just come up to your face like this. They'll do tricep extensions like this, whether it's a rope or a bar, they'll keep the elbows in tight, right? And they do this, and what that does, you'll notice when you do them like that, if you keep the elbows in tight, you'll really feel it down here around the elbow. I want people to stop and think about that for a moment. If you're feeling it there, is that really the muscle you're feeling, or is it the extra stretch it's putting on the tendons? And if you think about it, it's pulling the tendon harder across here, because normally certain types of extensions, they don't pull that tendon across there as hard. And you think about it, when you're here, versus, let's say you're out here, you do the full shoulder extension, right? You do shoulder extension because you're trying to get the long head to work and the elbows out a little more. At the bottom, you're back here. There's very little stress on the tendons, right? There's less stress on the tendons and it's not pulling them as hard across the bone. When you're here against the weight and you're like this, you have the tendons with the most stress put on them grinding across the actual bone there. All right, think about that for a moment. And you're doing lots of reps that way, and you're directly rubbing that tendon over a bone with all of the weight kind of on the tendon, not just on the tendon pulling, but pulling down while it's pulled a little bit around the bone. So you're actually rubbing the tendon against other hard tissue. You're rubbing it against the joint, you're rubbing it against the bone. Now, people are telling people to do this for whatever crazy reasons, because they think it isolates the tricep more, but it actually doesn't. It actually, by doing all of that, you're putting less work on the long head. All right, the long head of the tricep is the hardest one to build. The long head gets worked the least on the bench press. It gets worked the least on the closed grip bench press. It gets worked the least on all your incline presses, your decline presses. All of those work the lateral and medial head more than the long head. Well, the long head actually has the most muscle fibers in it. It's technically the biggest head of the tricep. So all these guys who are doing that are actually just working the same heads of the tricep that they're working on all their other presses as the primary mover, while working the head that's getting the least work, they're working it the least. All right? They're doing all of that, and you're doing an unnatural movement. It's not normal for your body to always strictly isolate a muscle in weird ways, and in that case, your triceps were never intended to be used that way. Stop and think about that. There is no movement found in nature that you would ever do, running, climbing, pulling, throwing, punching, anything like that, to where your tricep would be in this position here repeatedly. Right, when you throw, you don't do this. You throw, uses the tricep. Right, when you push something, you do this. You're not tucked in like this. All right, consequently, that's an angle the tricep is not really naturally designed to be put into. And again, so because that's not a common dynamic movement pattern, your tendons and different things in your body have to go certain ways, right? Things have to do something. They have to be somewhere. But your tricep is built in such a way that since that's not really a movement people have ever done historically in nature for any reason, it's not really set up to do it in, like, there's no injury prevention maintenance. It's like people are not designed to do it that way. You're creating an anatomically incorrect position. And it, like I said, it rubs that tendon against the bone with the most stress put on it possible at that angle. So you're actually putting, while that tendon's rubbing across that bone here, you're putting pulling force down while it's moving across it. So it's almost like rubbing the side of the tendon. Well, that causes irritation over time. That causes inflammation. That causes tendonitis. So it's doing the exercises that way that causes that. The way that you do them to avoid that is to let your elbows come out a little bit. Bring it up past your head. Like if you're going to do rope extensions, if you look at the rope extensions, if you do them like this, you're not creating that angle. You've got a slight outward angle and then you come down, right? And if you do it that way, it works the long head more. It takes that stress off the tendons, and it actually works the long head more, the head that usually gets the least work. You're more likely to get more tricep growth out of it. You're more likely to get more tricep growth out of it. So you're really killing two birds with one stone. And that's true of any tricep movement like that. I mean, generally speaking, I would assume most people are doing a tricep isolation exercise to build more tricep, right? You're trying to hit fibers or aspects of your tricep that are not getting worked on your other big exercises. That's the reason most people are doing isolation movements. Okay, that's the reason people do them. Not to work the same muscle the exact same way a bench press does. Not to build those heads up the most, because you could just do more bench press to do that, couldn't you? So it makes sense. So you're actually helping yourself grow better while reducing your chance of tendonitis. Now, the other thing that happens there is because so many big important exercises work the tricep, it's easy to get overuse of the connective tissue in triceps. And think about it this way. How many guys out there do some sort of pressing for their chest? Almost everyone. How many guys out there do at least 2 types of pressing for their chest every single week? The majority. It's not uncommon. It's not uncommon for people out there to do multiple sets of 3 different types of presses for their chest every week. And a dip is a press also. If you think about it, a dip is a form of a press. So they're doing all that. Then they're doing maybe some sort of press for their triceps itself. Closed grip bench press. A lot of guys are coming and counting that as a tricep exercise. How many guys are doing presses for their shoulders? The majority. So you've got all these different body parts that are directly working the tricep. How about some of your back work that works the tricep? How many guys do chin-ups? Chin-ups actually work the triceps. They work them very differently than most exercises. It's a different type of movement, but EMG studies and biomechanics do show the triceps get worked actually to a pretty decent extent on chin-ups. How about pullovers? Many guys even do pullover movements on a machine or with a dumbbell or cables or whatever. A lot of people do. Triceps are getting a lot of work. Then on top of that, after they've done all that, people come in and they do 10 or 12 sets of tricep exercises, isolation movements. Your triceps are being worked heavily all the time. Then people come in and isolate them, and oftentimes pick isolation movements that put more wear and tear on that connective tissue. All right, they put extra wear on the connective tissue. It is very, very easy to get overuse of connective tissue. You know, in addition to that activity we described that can cause abrasion of it, which can cause it to get inflamed over time, and even cause calcification of it and buildup there that starts to get painful that lasts for years. But you can also get other overuse and inflammation because the tricep, that connective tissue, just gets used so damn much. You think about those things in comparison. How many people push their triceps too hard, overuse them all the time without a deload? Yeah, you start getting connective tissue inflammation. And then people patch it up by putting sleeves over their elbows, just trying to keep it warm, hoping that'll make it go away when they have either abrasions on their connective tissue or the connective tissue is getting too many micro tears because it's being overused. And their solution, rather than let it heal, warm it up, put a sleeve on it so it will get warmer so I can keep training it harder without the pain and keep pushing it even though it's already injured, making the problem worse. So that's what's going on there, and hopefully that explains what's going on of how doing tricep extensions and skull crushers can contribute to tricep tendonitis or inflammation of the connective tissue or elbow pain. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.